The City of Hayden regular city council meeting. May we have a roll call of council members, please?
Council President Roeder,
Present.
Councilmember White.
Yes.
Councilmember DePriest.
Here.
And Councilmember Schaefer.
I am here.
Would you please join me with the Pledge of Allegiance? Cindy, would you mind leading us, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have any additions or corrections to tonight's agenda?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I communicated with City Administrator Elport that there was a mistake in the document for item 2E, which is approval of the second extension of the joint funding agreement to construct the Hayden North Lift Station.
Okay.
Paragraph, I believe, on the second page, it cited a date that hasn't occurred yet. And so the sentence I'm calling from memory because I don't have it in front of me, but that sentence should read, and the city council agreed on October the 23rd of 2023. And we just discussed it and in agreement that that should be the correction to the document.
Staff will make that correction before you sign the document and approve.
Okay, so we can hypothetically approve the consent calendar tonight.
Right, and we'll make that amendment before your signature.
Okay,
Taken.
so noted. Any other additions or corrections? I'm hearing none. We're going to move on to the first item of business, which is a proclamation for ALS. ALS is often referred to as Lou Gehrig's disease. It's a progressive fatal neuromuscular disorder that occurs when motor nerve cells cease to function and die, often leading to total paralysis and death. Within 5 years of diagnosis, there is no cure. Therefore, I'm making a proclamation, whereas ALS, known by many as Lou Gehrig's disease, is a progressive fatal neurodegenerative disease in which a person's brain loses connection with the muscles, slowly taking away their ability to walk, talk, eat, and eventually breathe. And whereas every 90 minutes someone is diagnosed with ALS and someone passes away from ALS, and whereas on average patients diagnosed with ALS only survive 2 to 5 years from the time of diagnosis, and whereas ALS has no cure, and whereas people who have served in the military are more likely to develop ALS and die from the disease than those with no history of military service, and whereas securing access to new therapies, durable medical equipment, and communication technologies is of vital importance to the people living with ALS, and whereas clinical trials play a pivotal role in evaluating new treatments, enhancing quality of life, and fostering assistive technologies for those living with ALS, and whereas we celebrate the 10th anniversary of the Ice Bucket Challenge through a renewed commitment to galvanize public awareness and support funding leading to significant investments in ALS research, and whereas the ALS Association is the largest philanthropic funder of ALS research globally, has committed over $154 million to support more than 550 projects across the United States and 18 other countries, and whereas our commitment to accelerating the pace of discovery remains unwavering, fueled in hope that one day ALS will be a livable disease for everyone, everywhere, until we can cure it. Whereas ALS Awareness Month increases the public's awareness of people with ALS's dire circumstances and acknowledges the terrible impact this disease has, not only on the person, but on his or her family and the community, and recognizes research being done to eradicate this disease. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Davis, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2024 as ALS Awareness Month. I call upon all Americans to join in supporting ALS research, advocating for increased funding, and standing in solidarity with those affected by this relentless disease. I set my hand on this day, 14th day of May 2024. Moving on to the consent calendar. All items on the consent calendar are action items, including approval of April 11th, 2024 City Council special meeting minutes, approval of 2024 Family Worship Center event permit application and loudspeaker use request, acceptance of Brian Riemann grant of easement, acceptance of Dana Renee Coffeen and Janet Jacobson grant of easement, approval of the second extension to the joint funding agreement to construct Hayden North Lift Station, approval of PZE 23000115 Hayden Sky Preliminary Plan Unit Development Written Decision, approval of Hayden Area Regional Sewer Board and Wastewater Treatment Plant Facility Upgrades Payment Request, approval of change order number 6 for Crawford Park Athletic Improvements, approval of 2024 Funflix Outdoor Movies Screen Rental Contracts for June 27 and August 22, and approval of bills for payment. Is there a motion? Thank you.
Yeah, I move to approve the consent calendar as written.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion needed on any of the consent calendar items? I'm hearing none. May we get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Council President Roder?
Yes.
And Councilmember DePreez?
Yes.
Okay, we're moving on to item 3, which is our visitor public comment. Bill, you have the only card up, and I'm certain you've heard my script before, so we'll skip that, okay? Thank you. I'll trust you. Bill, before you start, just curious, have you spoken to anybody on city staff or council about this before?
No.
Fair enough, thank you.
My name is Bill Breezy. I attended the HURA meeting yesterday, and in the HURA meeting, and this is about the property that was being sold to the city to become a park at Maple and Miles, and during the HURA meeting, Steve Myers, I believe it's Steve, he said that that parcel, he talked with the descendants of the family, and that he said that there was a timeline that sale had to happen, and that has passed. And so I'm just bringing this to your attention because I know you're looking at one of your action items is to hire somebody to do the HURA thing. My impression is that piece of property was included in the HURA expansion area because of the potential of a park. And if the park somehow gets away from us, then I would, not like to see that be developed. So, I think that we all, last meeting when you had the HURA expansion, we discussed that being a park and how it could be a park and a museum. And if the sale of that property has expired and they sell it to somebody else, I think that property should be pulled out of the HURA expansion.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Okay, item 4 is the next line of business. It's a public hearing. It's action item PZE 24-0035, the Cancor Zone Map Amendment. Should I read that one? This is, yeah, is this the applicant? Don, I've got a script I'm gonna go through real quick, okay?
Okay.
Thanks. Thanks, Abby. All right, for the members of the audience, our citizens, our staff is going to introduce the case. I will ask council if they've had any ex parte communication with the applicant or general public regarding the subject case, so let's knock that out. Anybody? Okay, thank you. Hearing none. After the staff introduces the subject case, the applicant will make a presentation. Yes?
Yep.
And then staff will present. Then if desired, we will have a public comment period that will be directed at council. The applicant, if there is public comment, will be given the option to offer a rebuttal, and then council will deliberate and make a decision. Thank you.
Good evening. So this is the Cancor LLC Zone Map Amendment Request, PZE 240035. So in the staff analysis that sits out on the, under the public hearing side of the city's webpage from the time of the first public hearing with Planning and Zoning Commission, all the way through to the end, it showed 2 lots side by side, and they're for both. The request is for both of these lots, 526 and 568. Rob Canopin's in the audience, and he'll be presenting here shortly, representing Cancor. So looking at it on a zone map, 2 quirky pieces of property that are kind of, I don't know how they got to be how they got there, but they are. So one piece of property is zoned light industrial adjacent to Buckles, and its rear portion is zoned commercial. And the one immediately adjacent to it, it is zoned commercial adjacent to Buckles and light industrial below it. So the request of the applicant is to make all of both those lots light industrial. So they're all in one zoning classification and most consistent with the surrounding area, as well as the future land use map.
Donna, could you back up one, please? That red square that seems to be separating the 2 lots, what's?
This red
significance?
square,
Yeah, what's the significance of that?
it's the rear piece of this piece of property.
Okay.
It's all one lot.
We all understand that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
no, absolutely. And so the request is to take those 2 split zone pieces of property that are zoned commercial and light industrial and to make them both light industrial. Just as a matter of interest, the properties are 2 and 0.67 acres and 1 and just shy of a half. So the 2.67 acre piece of property is this one, and this one is a little over an acre. All right? So with that, I will hand it over to the applicant. Did you want me to leave this map up? Is that the one you wanted? Okay.
Thank you, Donna, and I don't have anything further to add other than that both of the buildings on both of these properties have been industrial from their inception, and we don't know why there's a commercial zone in the rear there or in the front, so, and we're just trying to get it rezoned so it's consistent with the City of Hayden's future use map and the current uses that are going on there right now.
Any questions for the applicant?
Yes, sir.
I think I know the answer, but I'm going to ask you anyway.
Oh, okay.
It appears that the very south end of the property on the east,
Yes,
if you
sir.
go to the other map, yeah, whoop, no, yeah, go back, please. The inset there, go to the inset to the right,
This here?
No, the box on the far right.
the far right.
Oh, here.
Yeah. So I want to make sure that that gray area is light industrial.
Yeah.
And it goes all the way to the south, and then to the west of that is our residential properties, is that correct?
Yes.
So really, by changing this to light industrial, are there going to be any residential properties affected more than those few?
This is light industrial right now. It is actually light industrial.
I understand that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but you're going to want to change the commercial to light industrial, where your cursor is there?
Right.
To the west of that, what's to the west of that?
It's a mobile home, like there's some small residences there. And I'm not quite sure how this ever got zoned commercial. Maybe way back in the day, they had some ideas, but it doesn't really, there's no, I can see no scenario where it makes sense to have this commercial like behind a light industrial. Like, would you put a tattoo shop back there or something? I doubt it. You know, it just probably, and the rest of these probably will eventually become either light industrial or some other use, but.
Yeah, so again, to the west of that little rectangle where you have the cursor, go back.
Yeah.
Right there, those are a couple of mobile homes.
Yep.
So those are the only properties, residential properties that'll be affected, if it at all,
Yeah.
by going from commercial to light industrial for the whole parcel. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor. I know this isn't for the applicant, maybe Don, it strikes me, if you know, how is it that we have mobile homes in a commercial zone like that?
I'll explain when I do my presentation.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Oh, go ahead, Councilman White.
I wanted to ask, thank you for coming. I just wanted to ask, were both of those buildings built at the same time?
No, one was built shortly after the other.
Okay,
And, but they were both built, industrial with the power requirements and all those things that typically come with an industrial property. And it was Flowmaster that built both buildings.
okay,
And so it was a build-to-suit for them, and so they had to go through the process, and
okay.
so.
And what's going to be on the, what are these properties going to be used for? Is it CNC machining?
Well, yeah, the property right here is Tractor Beverage now.
Okay.
They're a national company that makes beverages for Dr. Pepper, McDonald's, stuff like that. It's pretty cool. They've expanded and they're a great company. And so this tenant is Factory Fab, but they're moving out. And so we have a new tenant moving in that does CNC manufacturing of component parts
Okay.
for automobiles and other things. And it's very clean operation. They actually exist in this building right here, right now.
Okay,
They're an industrial, but this building is half the size and doesn't have the power that's in this building. And so they're expanding. They're a pretty cool company and they need additional power, which this building has both for them.
okay. And then all that empty space at the back? What's
But
that going to be?
it's still just going to remain vacant.
Okay,
Yeah, there's no plans to develop and
okay,
if in the future, like this is light industrial, this would be light industrial, whatever it would be developed would be consistent with that zone,
okay.
if anything.
Thank you. Thank you, that's all.
Okay.
Actually, my question was answered.
Okay,
Okay.
any other questions for the applicant? Okay, Donna, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So I'm going to answer the last question first while the zoning map is up. So as properties annexed into the city that were mobile home parks when they were in the county, they annexed in under the zone that they were when they were in the county. So this one was residential suburban or ag suburban in the county, and it became residential suburban in the city. And the northern portion was commercial, so that's the way it came in as. Just like this one down here, same thing. It was zoned commercial in the county without manufactured home park behavior. And it came into the city the same way. That's why we've got that kind of quirky commercial hunk in the middle of a sea of otherwise residential uses.
Did I hear you correctly? You said that when it was county property, zoned commercial, that permitted it to be manufactured homes?
At that point in time.
Okay, so by extension, then, the properties to the west, which are currently manufactured homes, the reason why it's zoned commercial is because under the county zoning regulations,
At that time that it was
those
annexed.
two things synced up? Okay, thank you.
And it could have been, we have quirks like that all the way through the city. So we have residential, we have manufactured home parks that are zoned in residential suburban, in commercial, single-family residential. Literally all the zones have, except light industrial, I think. So kind of throughout all. Okay, so a zone map amendment has 5 standards of approval. The first 2 have to do with whether additional studies would be required or additional conditions. And based on the applicant's request, the Planning and Zoning Commission and staff recommended, didn't believe any additional studies or plans were required, and neither did the Planning and Zoning Commission in their recommendation. And then the amendment to the zoning map shall be in accordance with the future land use map and the goals and policies found in the Hayden Comprehensive Plan. Light industrial is defined as a use that provides for manufacturing, processing, and distribution, wholesale retail sales, an environment that is clean, quiet, and free of noise, odor, dust, and smoke. And the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan are found on page 3 of your staff review and also in their entirety in their appendix. So we kind of identified several goals. City should encourage the development of land within the corporate limits, preserving, protecting, and strengthening the stability of existing neighborhoods, providing a balance of commercial uses in designated areas and centered on established transportation corridors, ensuring that the development can be serviced by existing public facilities, establish a balance between jobs and housing, ensuring that ordinances and policies don't violate private property rights, and promote and encourage the development and rehabilitation of existing structures. So I wanted to go back to the one that talked about protecting and established neighborhoods. I wanted to note that as Councilmember Roeder brought up, that this one piece of property is indeed got 2.5 residences that are adjacent to it that would be affected, could be affected if it went to light industrial. This one on the corner also has light industrial immediately to its north, and the entire northern portion of this is already zoned light industrial, and nearly all of the, or a portion of the east side. So just as a clarification of where the park is located and the requirement of that noise-free, dust-free environment, we have followed up with folks that aren't, and they have moved toward that direction. So we haven't had any complaints from the park in many years. So then policies, policy 2, 12, 14, and 23, the development should be compatible with the land use chapter of the comprehensive plan. Encourage rezoning and zoning text amendments to support transition zones between residential and industrial uses. Coordinate and support local water and irrigation districts, and ensure that land use and zoning is compatible to the airport. So again, there's the future land use map. And then the amendment to the zoning map and zone text shall align with the zone district's purpose and intent. So a commercial zone provides for most types of businesses, as well as for retail and wholesale sales and service. And light manufacturing, light industrial is again that light manufacturing, processing, and distribution, wholesale retail sales, and an environment that's clean, quiet, and free of noise, odor, dust, and smoke. And then the proposed land use is one that already exists today. So a comparison of the setback and lot design, they're nearly synonymous between the two. The only difference is the height. And because of their close proximity to the manufactured home park to the west, they would only be able to go to 45 feet in the light industrial zone as well. So they're exactly the same with all the setbacks as if it were commercial. Commercial and light industrial are exactly the same. So that's a view again of the zone map. And then if you look at that, neighborhood contexts conversation that we've talked about previously, those are the folks that are within that 300-foot radius that would get noticed as the affected properties. We did not receive any comments from the Sun Air Manufactured Home Park folks at all.
Donna, were they mailed notices?
They were mailed notices to the owners. So the individual tenants were not noticed, but it's been noticed in the paper, and it has had property notices up on the site as well.
So can I pursue that a little bit more? So like if I'm a tenant in there, what is the most likely way that I would have found out about this proposed change?
There's two parts of the question. One is what does the law require? It requires as soon as the property owners would be.
Yes.
And the other opportunity, the other requirement is that we receive papers. So we'd have to be following the legals to see that.
Okay, so the owner is the person from whom they rent the slab for their manufactured home, and then the only other way is through the paper if they get the Coeur d'Alene Press or...
We don't always know if property's rented, so if we send it to the record that the county has for the legal owner.
The owner may provide them copies
Yes.
with notice. We just wouldn't have any way of knowing that.
Is it posted on the property?
Yes, there's also.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if people driving back and forth, they should see a visible posting.
On the front, along Buckles, right? But not if I'm
In the
driving
backyard of the
within...
property.
I wouldn't see that sign.
Correct. So then infrastructure at the time of future development, if they were to develop the rear portions of those properties, they're in the Hayden Lake Irrigation District, all the utilities would be placed underground. The city sewer master plan shows the site within the H2 sewer basin. Northern Lakes Fire Protection District would weigh in on any future development. They would get access off of Buckles Road, the public street in front of their property, and stormwater would be reviewed at the time of future development. So notices were sent out to 15 agencies, and the public agencies who responded included the Coeur d'Alene Airport, who requested an navigation easement. Idaho Department of Environmental Quality didn't have any comments at this time. Kootenai County Sheriffs didn't have any comments or concerns. Northern Lakes Fire Protection District identified requirements if or when future development occurred out of the rear of those lots. And then public comments received prior to the hearing was the one comment before the Planning and Zoning Commission hearing. And then comments received and sent as part of the memo to City Council were actually sent to an email address, not the one they were supposed to be responding to. And those were from Panhandle Health District, who responded with no comments. Hayden Lake Irrigation District responded that they weren't at the water jurisdiction, and Avondale Irrigation District responded that they didn't have any comments regarding the proposed request. So at the conclusion of the hearing, the Planning and Zoning Commission deliberated the proposal, and Commissioner Johnson moved and Commissioner Gibson seconded the motion to recommend approval of the file, finding that the request is in accord with the standards of Hayden City Code for a zone map amendment based upon the testimony received, public and agency comments, the facts in the record, and the staff analysis. And all members of the commissioners present were in favor. And those are the 5 standards of approval and proposed motions for the project. I stand for questions.
Any questions for Donna?
Donna? For the descriptive qualifications of what constitutes light industrial, are there any particular standards attached to that? Like for sound, is there like a maximum decibel?
It's in our noise ordinance. We have a noise ordinance and, standards. I mean, an example would be if you, the standard says to the annoyance of others. So if you were a cabinet shop, for example, and you open a rear door of the shop and you're sawing in a sawmill all day, that's annoying. I mean, I'm the first to say that. So requirements would go into place that wouldn't allow for that to happen. And for the most part, we've had very little difficulty with any of those businesses along those. They're very, very courteous of the businesses to the residences.
Okay. I just have to chase down all possibilities here, so pardon me. When it comes to using CNC machining, there is quite a bit of high-pitched noise associated with those. I understand it'll be operated within the building. Has there been any kind of due diligence done to ensure that that will not egress and bother the neighborhood?
Do you have a comment?
Well, this isn't a conversation regarding use. This is a conversation regarding a zone map amendment.
Fair enough. Okay.
And Don, the city went through quite a process to have a future use map that pointed both these properties to be light industrial, right? I mean, it was a pretty laborious process to get that future use map. We're just trying to make this consistent with what the city wants, right?
Okay.
I have not sure if it's a question or a comment, but I gotta run this by. Hayden Area Regional Sewer Board, we process residential waste, water, and commercial. And one of the things that has happened is certain commercial users, there's been a problem with elevated chemicals, whatever those chemicals are. And I guess I'm not, and this is where the question's coming in. Are we in, with this zone change possibility, can we ask for, or do they have a test port so that we can actually look at the outflow, and when we see elevated chemicals, we need to identify and then talk to those users about cutting down or being careful, because so that's the question is, currently, do they have a test port? And with this zone change, can we require that they do have one as part of the condition of approval?
I'm gonna, if you don't mind, I think our attorney's gonna say that you're again discussing use as Tom did and not just the zone map amendment.
That's correct.
But we're talking about taking a commercial property and converting part of it into industrial. And that use, I guess, okay, so it's the improper time to bring this up.
Yes.
That's my question.
I was going to offer to say that our ordinances definitely have trigger points in which we would require this level of testing be installed that is set forth within the Hayden City Code.
Which
Okay,
wouldn't
so,
happen at zone map
Right.
amendment time. So it's a timing issue.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Donna? Okay. I don't see any public comment cards related to this hearing. And I'm looking around the audience, I'm not seeing anyone making any motion, so we'll move on to, does the applicant wish to offer any rebuttal based on the testimony given by the city? Okay. Then we shall move on to council deliberations and close the public hearing. Thank you, Abby. So council can choose to proceed with deliberations or schedule deliberations to a later date to allow time to review the record. Do we want to deliberate?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Please do so. Go ahead, Tom, you want to start?
No, I don't.
So, real quick, before we start deliberations, just please keep in mind, this is just simply changing the zone. We're not prosecuting or evaluating the use on the property. This is just the zone. So we just look at the 5 standards of approval and ask ourselves, are they met or not? Ed, you want to go?
Sure, I'll go. To me, this is an easy one, really. As has been discussed, the code, city code and ordinances and the like are there to address the issues that have been presented extraneous to the zone change. And I have confidence that should those come into play, that they will be dealt with, enforced, whatever related to that. I am a large proponent of assisting businesses as best we can to be within our parameters of codes and the like, but whatever we can do to bring businesses into the city of Hayden and help them prosper so that we prosper, I think is the best thing to do. And from what I see, they meet these standards up there.
Okay, thank you. Sandy?
Yes, I too agree, and I don't see any alarm bells going off that there's anything that would be amiss here.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Thank you. Matt?
I see that the standards for zone map amendment have been met, and I think this is a good way to clear up a mixed zoning issue for a property owner. I could see where that could get cumbersome, so
Okay,
I support it.
Tom, anything you want to add?
I'm in agreement with what everybody else has said. We should encourage more businesses to come to Hayden by making it easier to establish themselves. I asked a couple of questions to kind of dig in deeper because I want to understand what the background is and whether or not the adjacent neighborhood has been properly notified. But based upon the standards of conditions of approval by which I am to judge today, I agree that everything has been met and I wholeheartedly support this.
Okay, unless there's any more deliberations, would anyone like to make a motion, please?
I would like to move to approve PZE 240035, Kankor Zone Map Amendment Request,
Okay?
finding it's in accord with the standards of Hayden State Code.
I'm so sorry, I have to get too quick.
Reading the script.
You're great, thank you. So do we have a second? We have a motion.
Second.
And we have a second. May we get a roll call, please?
Councilmember DePreez?
Yes.
Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
Excuse me, Council President Roder?
Yes.
And Councilmember White?
Yes.
All right, we'll move on to unfinished business, which is it's an action item, authorization for the mayor to sign an engagement letter with Elam and Burke to facilitate the expansion of the Hayden Urban Renewal Area Revenue Allocation District. This was just the next step following City Council's direction to approve portions of what was evaluated for our HURA expansion. Does anybody on council have any questions about this for me or city staff?
Well, I had some questions that are a repeat of some that I already asked staff, but I'd like to repeat them for public consumption here. So there are concerns about this letter, Mr. Mayor, that I have. One of them is it doesn't provide detail on like what the endpoint is, nor does it have a timeline. And I read also in there that the funds to pay for this will come from the legal services GL account, which according to staff is about 45% planned to budget in this fiscal year. I understand we renew at the end of the fiscal year, but this is how we pay for Lake City Law Services. And one of my concerns is if we go over the remaining, where does that come from? I think I know the answer to it, but Lisa, you want to fill in the answer? I think it comes from reserve funds. One of my biggest concerns about this is there's no cap on how much money that the city could possibly spend on this. And based on the fact that I read in there that we'll hire third parties to do an eligibility study, another one that would do surveying, another one that would do economic feasibility. It raises red flags for me on the total cost that this thing could be and whether or not the city can at this time afford to pay for this.
Sure. Is that an open opportunity?
So I made a lot of statements and I can repeat anything you wish and you can answer anything you wish, but this is the assessment from my review.
I would like to answer any questions you might have
Okay,
specifically.
so what is the potential cost that this might be for us?
So because the expansion isn't something that many cities have done, and it is very specific to each city's current boundaries, it's hard for the attorney to give me much of an idea of the scope. She did provide me context about a ceiling of not to exceed without prior approval, which is generally what I like to look at, but given the fact that this is a hard thing to nail down, she did give me a cap of 45,000 for the work to be done, and that would equate to about 180 hours of work. And again, the process is scripted out in her memo or in her engagement letter. And there are a number of steps. I will let council know that staff has done and has assisted in a number of those steps in order to help alleviate the end cost. But it's hard as your staff to really know exactly when those steps have to be done and what has to be done with respect to completing. So that's why asking for assistance from outside counsel assures that staff is making those steps and council is making those decisions accurately. The other consultant, there would be two more. One would be the one that would write the feasibility and the economics analysis. And I was hopeful that I'd have those together today, but I don't. So I'm still working on getting that to you. That would be to looking at a local firm, Metz Group, to do that work. And then the third consultant would be the legal description development. We do have to create a legal description. That's the part that the county has to use and the state tax commission has to use in order to assess the proper increment from those parcels. I do have quotes for those too, but I was told the legal description isn't necessary at this time because we should go through the eligibility report, the economic feasibility analysis, and then the plan amendment. And the plan amendment, in discussions with the Elam and Burke attorney, was that, and I've shared some of this with some of you individually, that the plan that was drafted in 2005, if I remember right, that's the time frame that we opened that district, was at a time that the new law isn't the same, written the same, and the amendment to the plan would have to likely come into accord with the current urban renewal laws. And so there's a little bit of a heavy lift to bring that plan into that. So that's another reason why it's hard to pin down those costs.
So that 45K in 180 hours, is that kind of like a average?
Again, there's not a lot of data points to average this to give you a good sense of that, so.
Well, I'm an engineer, so I want to know, like, what is that I would on average expect, and what is the worst case scenario? Do you care to entertain?
Well, so the cap, if council were to go forward with a not to exceed without prior approval, would give a chance for us to circle back with council in the event that we're approaching that ceiling and have an explanation as to where we are within that process. You certainly don't, you could set it at a much lower amount if you want, but we'll likely hit there faster when we'll be in front of you again for an extension of that contract. So, yeah.
Okay, I'm done asking questions for now.
Can you anticipate when you said you've been working on it, but you don't have it already? Can you anticipate when you might have a complete estimation of the range that we may be looking at?
As far as for the feasibility and economic,
For all the costs related to this?
I would guess it's going to be probably close to 100,000. That's to go through all of the work that's necessary, the updating of the plan, the amendment of the plan, drafting the resolution, doing an ordinance, doing the feasibility study. Yep.
Okay. Now, it says in here, should the expansion be completed, request reimbursement from her as possible. I know we would have to go through the process and have that discussion with them. My guess would be that they would reimburse that, but then again, should it come back with issues, we would not have that. So just off the top of my head here, I'm sensing a lot of really difficult issues here, because let's say we say, no, that's too much money, then that eliminates in particular, most important in my mind, intersection and government way improvements. That, if I'm understanding it correctly, if we don't do this, we can't do, so then we're gonna have to find the money, because her won't be allowed to give it to us. So that means taxpayers in some form or another will have to fund these projects if we want them. Is that correct?
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, the reality is we don't know if we'll have enough time after we're done to get all of those intersections completed, but we wouldn't be able to get anything started.
That's what I'm saying. If we just say, no, we can't, whatever, then it's basically nothing. It would stay as it was because of the situation where they are not currently in the district. So it would be on the city to find all of the funds to complete however many of these projects that we are able to do.
Yeah, that was the decision point at which council made to direct staff to come forward with the plan to expand the district, and this is that process.
I understand, and I'm just trying to make sure that, because again, we're sitting, the taxpayers, I think, know, and I keep saying this, that the city's looking at a lot of potential expenses in the near future with a lot of issues that are happening. And if it's not HURA, then it's the taxpayers, or we don't do these projects, correct? Bonds, taxes, whatever, that's the only place the money's coming from, either HURA or the taxpayer.
Yeah, or, yeah, other grants or whatever, we would have to work a lot harder to get those
Right,
funds,
okay.
correct?
Thank you.
Having said that, if I might, counsel, I'd like us to not slide back into debating whether we're expanding her or not. So even though the vote was close, we did vote to expand our HURA district, and this is the process by which we do that. So that's what I'd ask you guys to please focus on.
Well, I think my focus is there, but again, and I'm not suggesting that we go back and try and reverse our decision.
Right.
But the reality that I see, and again, I could be missing something here, is that even with our decision to move forward, if we cannot complete this process because we find it to be prohibitive, then the expansion will not occur.
It wouldn't occur unless we came back and asked you again to sign an engagement letter. But yeah, it would at the very least delay the expansion of HURA. It wouldn't change the process. It's not like if we delayed it, we're gonna get it under a blue light for 50% off down the road.
No, and my main concern is those intersections in particular, and the fact that whatever the outcome here is, what is the opportunity, feasibility, whatever you want to call it, of those being completed sometime in the relatively near future.
Mr. Mayor, if I could also just make one other point of information, and that would be that the hope would be that we would have this completed by the end of the year, by December 31st of this year, so that we can backdate the expansion or the values to January 1 of this year. So the hope would be to get to that point, and we can't get there if we keep delaying this.
Yep. Sandy or Matt, do you have any questions?
Yes, I just want to jump off what Mr. Breezy said about the Miles and Maple property. Do we know what the situation is with that property? Has it been sold, or?
The property's not been sold. It is currently being evaluated as part of our HURA expansion.
Okay. And so I feel like we've kind of put the cart before the horse here, because it would have been nice to know these numbers before we voted on the expansion. And like you said, we're moving forward. So with that in mind, I would like to propose that we as a council have a workshop to decide what projects we want done in each of these areas exactly. And then after that, we can come back with these attorneys and ask them to study those in particular. So right now, we're asking the attorneys to do a feasibility study on what? It's so wide open, and it's too expensive to be so open-ended. So I would propose that we have just a talk and make decisions and say we want this, this, and this, and that way the feasibility study would be more focused.
And just to clarify, the attorneys won't write the feasibility study. That will have to come before you with a separate contract with a consultant to do that. And as part of that, in my meeting with the particular consultant that I'm hoping we'll be able to sign a contract with, would be to look at those projects as identified within the workshop that were presented to the public. So if there's a different level of projects you want to consider and a different amount that we're looking at, I would have to have that direction so that the consultant can do that work. But my understanding was we were doing it on those projects already identified.
Councilman White, are you making a motion?
No.
Okay.
Matt, anything to add?
My biggest, my goal is to have funding in place so that we can fix intersections within the urban renewal district, the ones that have been identified. That's my highest priority. I don't want to delay, nor do I want to lose the opportunity of being able to use urban renewal increment to fund those projects. So I want to move forward, but my concern is cost. You know, what is it going to cost to do the analysis? And if correct me if I'm wrong, is that we're going to have to hire a consultant to do a feasibility study first. That'd be the first thing.
Feasibility and economic analysis, if I remember right.
It's an economic feasibility study.
Economic feasibility. There's two different,
So is there a chance that what has been approved by the council with enlarging our district, that the feasibility study may say it doesn't meet state law?
correct. That's the point of going into that.
So
but-
we have to make sure we're within the law with what we're doing, and they do the feasibility study. The attorney then they have to review, do they do the final review before the civil engineers come in and do all the legal descriptions?
Right, the last step would be to prepare the legal descriptions for those properties that are feasible to enter in.
And they do the plan amendment.
And a plan amendment. Well, that would be the attorneys would do the plan
Yeah,
amendment.
that's what I mean.
Lisa, I'm having an epiphany. Maybe at the next city council meeting, maybe we put up a single slide with the process from where city council directed us to expand the HURA district through to the end, just the different steps. It just dawns on me that they're not in their day-to-day like we are, so it's new information, and spelling it out might make it easier to understand.
So, I was at the HURA meeting, the Hayden Urban Renewal Agency meeting yesterday, and Steve Meyer, who is one of the prominent developers in the area, he said he's been studying that property, and he actually has been going through the last appraisal and making comments about that appraisal. And I won't go into details on that, but he's the one that brought up the point that the proposed agreement to buy that property, that's expired. And he's saying that somebody can come in and buy it now, because the city is not in place to buy it. So I guess my question would be, how do we move forward with an uncertainty like that? We don't have an agreement with them, and I'm just wondering how we can include something within a feasibility study that we don't even know that we can buy.
Well, there's lots of other options for her participating with the acquisition of a potential future land. That doesn't equate to the Hanson selling it to the city.
Well, yeah, I want, that's why I say, I want to go forward with the intersections. I think that's critical. My question is that how can we include that moving forward without knowing what's going to happen to the Hanson property? Because if that isn't included in the feasibility study, that probably would reduce the cost of the study, because you have one less variable to include in the equation.
It won't change the process engagement with Elam and Burke. Yeah.
But it could affect the cost. So do we need to have an answer first on this Hanson property, or where we're at on it?
I don't believe we do. I believe the answer is really that we move forward as council-directed staff. And if we're working with the particular landowner that's currently owning it or a future landowner, we would still be eligible to look at that as far as the use of HURA funds.
Okay. I'm gonna be me here, and hope I don't get in trouble. But, I'm getting the feeling, and I, to some degree, share it, that the Miles and Maple property is not gonna end up being something that is going to come to fruition as we have looked at it. And that there's a concern that it may come into all this may play out, and you may have, who knows who buy it, and then look to HURA for help in development of that property, And who knows, we don't direct HURA, we can't tell HURA whether or not they can assist that property at that time or not. And so my question is, can we, at this point or through some part of the process, say, okay, look, it appears, and I'm just guessing here, that we're all in agreement that probably not going to happen, and remove it from the, I'm losing my words here, from the study, from the scope of the study, and say, look, we just want the intersections looked at, that we don't think that this is going to happen anyway, so let's just look at the intersections.
You had 9, if I remember correctly, proposed parcels for study. So I think what you're asking is, can that be reduced, or can you be given some idea of a change in cost if there's less than
Can it be
9?
removed? Can that particular one be removed from, if it is 9, the 9? So we tell our consultant, and I believe it was the discussion about, the specificity, and say, look, we want these, and forget the one on Miles and Maple. Is that, can we legally do that, or would we have to return to the process that we went through to agree to expand? Would we have to?
And I guess I would just want you to understand the implications of that action, regardless of what the attorney says, and she'll give you that direction, is that if in the event there's a future landowner who wishes to work with the city on developing a park on that property, we would not be able to use the HERA funds to help do that. So just want to make sure you understand that. Okay.
And again, a lot of people have wanted this HERA to be, or this, how should I say, private property sales to be publicly, done in public. Nobody, I'm sorry, but nobody is going to conduct their private business in public just because it happens to relate to the potential of an urban renewal district assistance. That's ridiculous to, I'm sorry, but in my opinion, and that's a big if. And I think that's what we're trying to weigh here. I sense that we're all willing to move forward and deal with the intersection stuff, but I think there's a lot of reticence to include that property with the potential if down the road. And I think there's a lot of concern that who knows who or what would try and benefit from the use of HERA that on development that would not benefit the city.
If council would, I'm going to hand you a piece of paper each. This is out of our comprehensive plan, specifically our master parks plan. As you can see, if we want to follow our comprehensive plan, there is a proposed future neighborhood park in that area. So the implication, if you were to de-scope the HERA expansion, would be to, again, limit the funding that could be used to potentially put a park there against the plans the city literally has to drop a park there. So no one's saying specifically there's going to be a park there. We have no idea who's going to buy the land. The issue is if you de-scope this, then we tie our hands and it's gone. And if we don't de-scope it, then there is the potential for us to fulfill what our comprehensive plan has detailed here. So I just want to let council know, regardless of your decision, we're proposing this work because it's consistent with what we said we were supposed to do as a city. And I'm sure that if a developer purchased the land, said they were absolutely 0% interested in working with the city for anything out of there, that while we were executing this contract, we would relay that to the lawyers and say, we no longer need this in scope. That's something we can do, right?
Yes.
Which would then protect our investment in this contract. So we can move forward with this contract, see what happens with the land, and adjust. We're not going to just blindly pay lawyers tens of thousands of dollars for land that we will never get our hands on. But if there's a possibility for us to do this, and again, follow our comprehensive plan, then I guess I'm just advising you accordingly.
So Mayor, I can appreciate where you brought this up, that our park and recreation system plan identifies a park up in that area, but we have a citizen survey, and the people who are paying the taxes want our traffic issues fixed as a high priority.
Oh, I agree.
So my statement is that I want to listen to what the people want. And that's, let's fix those intersections. And again, that's a higher priority than putting another park in. We have a 16-acre park out at Hayden Canyon that, where are we going to get the money to develop that? We already own the property, and that's up at the northeast end of the sector of the city. So again, I know there's a lot of love for open space and parks, but we need to listen to the voice of the people. They're the ones that pay the taxes, and they want roads fixed. So that's where my concentration is, and I would like to see if we can do it, is if we limit the engagement letter just to list the approved possible expansions to the HURA district, but eliminate the Henson property one.
Matt, I'm going to agree with you 100% on that we should listen to our citizens. We have 79% of our city who answered that survey agreeing that losing open space is more concerning than housing development. We also had 49% of our city say that improving walking and bicycle travel ease is a priority. So I think if we're going to listen to the survey, we should look at all of it. And while I'm not accusing you of cherry picking, because traffic is on there specifically, maintaining our transportation system quality was a notable metric, but we shouldn't look at one thing and just ignore the rest of it. Yes.
Yes, thank you. So I think that we need to look at the overall costs of a park if we keep on going in that direction. First of all, we've never sat down and talked about what we would do with that property, who would be paying for what, how are we going to develop it, if it's a museum, who pays for the curator. Costs just keep heaping on, and it's the same as with this attorney. The cost looks like it couldn't end, so we need to be more careful when we engage in things and think about the costs at the end. And it's not our job to stop growth by buying property. I was listening to our last meeting again, and there was a quote saying, "By putting this into the Urban Renewal Agency's district, all we're doing is protecting the land from being purchased by a developer." But that's not our job, to buy up properties, to protect it from developing. And even if we buy it up, who knows, it could get used in a different way. We have other parks like Hayden Canyon. We have Stoddard Park Barn. That needs to be taken care of. We have Crawford Park. That needs to have things done to it. Biting off another park, I think, right now is more than we can chew.
Okay. Okay.
This is gonna
Go
go,
ahead.
I mean, I know, I since want to wrap this up, but
Yeah, well, and the thing, I don't want to get
No,
to, I don't want to get to where we're discussing something that I think belongs in executive session. We're not discussing our acquisition of a property. We're discussing whether to leave
True.
what has been directed to her expansion in an engagement letter.
I'm gonna use this opportunity to talk about, as others have, listening to the people. Okay? And I'm gonna put out the hypothetical there that the scenario that has basically been put forth is that, let's say somebody does buy it. They want to develop it, and they go to HURA, and HURA says, "Sure, we'll help you." You want to hear the people scream? That's what you get. Everybody, I think, knows what's already said about HURA and the like. And if a private developer comes in there and they give that developer any assistance, then everybody on this council will probably get strung up. Okay, let's just be honest about it. And I see a head shaking out there because I sense that that's probably exactly what'll happen, because that's what's been happening in the past. And so again, it comes back to what I started off by saying. We're in a situation here where we have to do something, and how do we move forward as rapidly as possible to get this traffic issue and these roads and intersections dealt with, and avoid ending up in a situation that I just described? Because I sense that is not a 50-50 likelihood of potentially happening. I'm going to, again, no, it's not our job to buy a property to prevent development, but I think every member on this council has campaigned on preventing density and doing the best we can to manage growth. Let's just say managing density and growth as best we legally can. And I think a park in this area would be nice if it could happen sometime down the road. And I think we should do everything we can to prevent 40 homes being pounded into that corner because of the detriment that I could see to the roads and that community there. But again, we're in a situation. What is the money's going to come from the legal budget?
We would just bill it to that account.
Okay, and what is budgeted for legal?
110,000,
Total for the year?
right?
And there's a potential of 100,000 of that alone going to this project.
So the future cost would likely be billed somewhere else, but for the other consultants, because it's not legal. But yeah, there's a good chance that this particular line item would go over. We frequently have those happen in
So it would
different.
then come from the reserve fund, rainy day fund, whatever you want to call
And
it.
it would be likely, if you completed this task fully, you could ask for reimbursement for the HURA board for the amount cost to go through this. But if you don't finish it, they would not be able to expend those funds because it would be outside
I
district.
understand that, but, again, I think, worst case scenario type of thing, I don't want to get into the situation where we spend all this money and then they say, well, it's not feasible or whatever. And then so HURA doesn't reimburse and we're out a lot of money.
It's everything that was directed for the expansion, which was included.
I'd like to make another just summation of my comment, and that is, we have to move forward with expansion for these intersections, which I fully support, but I do not support the Hanson property to be part of the study. That's the park, potential park. And that's where my position is. So I would agree to a engagement letter for just all the what we approved as a council to consider to be expansions to our district, but not to include the Hanson property.
Forgive me for asking a naive question, especially with the camera on. What's the point of asking city council where to expand the HURA district if then on the next meeting they change it? In other words, why not just go straight to this step?
So let's be really clear. The feasibility study to determine whether or not properties are eligible to be included in an urban renewal district, the request was for about 35 acres, which includes approximately 31 different parcels. So it's an acreage expansion. It's not a parcel expansion. And so and the estimated cost, which you haven't seen yet for the feasibility study, I'll just say it, is going to be about $49,000. I don't think removing one parcel from that is going to drastically adjust the cost of that feasibility study. And we're not looking at it from an acreage expansion perspective right now, but and Matt probably knows this better than the rest of us, but you might have to go through the Hanson property anyways to get to your new proposed perimeter boundaries. But I think what I hear him also asking is, from a cost perspective, does removing that one parcel from the feasibility study save you any money? But you're not doing a feasibility study on just parcels. It's a 35-acre proposed expansion to be studied for feasibility. And what does it mean to study for feasibility? It means You have to have a consultant come in and determine that the parcels that are being considered meet Idaho code. So there's very specific language. The eligibility study will examine the proposed 31 parcels to determine if conditions exist which qualify the entire area as appropriate for an urban renewal district. The study will be the basis to declare the expanded area as a deteriorated area and/or a deteriorating area as set forth in Idaho Code Sections 50-2018 subsections 8 and 9 and Idaho Code Title 50-2903 subsection 8. So your feasibility study is to say, do they by Idaho code meet the qualifications necessary to be included in an urban renewal district? Your Elam and Burke attorneys are working, then the feasibility study comes back to you, and then you look at it. And you say, either these are all feasible, they're not, and that's when you make that, you have a public hearing on actually where to propose those expanded boundaries to go. Only after that public hearing does do Elam and Burke come back then and do what's called a plan amendment. So they have to come in and redraft the plan for you. It's been a long time since your plan's been updated. So I know that's a long answer to what seemed like maybe a short question, but for the public to understand the difference between this feasibility study, does it meet Idaho code to even be included in urban renewal, versus what the attorneys are being asked to do with regards to the plan amendment and the actual legal work for the expansion, which is very technical.
So at that time, after this feasibility study, when you say they come back to it, potential time frame on that, guesstimate, before they would bring that back, months?
I don't know.
Years?
I'm looking right now. Hold on.
Just rough, I mean.
It's at least probably a couple months.
I would
Okay,
think. Our hope would be
so
to be done by the
we
end
would
of the year.
then,
Yeah.
most likely by that time, know what's going on with the Hanson property. And when they come back with that feasibility study, we would then, it sounds like you said, have the opportunity to say, okay, now we want this, and this that we actually want to expand.
You're gonna actually identify the new boundaries that
And
you want.
even if they say that property is feasible, depending on what's going on in time, we could say, no, we don't want it now, we just want these.
Correct.
Okay.
I want to clarify my statement because I did say parcel, the Hanson
You did.
parcel. That to take in the Hanson parcel, there has to be a boundary corridor that goes east from the existing district and take in. So it's kind of like a pipe, the shape of a pipe. I meant that whole option, not just one parcel. That's my concern because it takes in a bunch of residential homes that are going to really not gain any increment, so there's no justification to have those houses. The idea with having expansion of a district typically is so you can increase the amount of increment or the taxes that are collected for the urban renewal agencies. So, and if it did get it developed in the park, there wouldn't be any taxes collected.
So do you want to know whether or not there's a cost savings for the cost of the feasibility study to remove that from their scope of services?
Sure. Yeah, well, that's one option, because, I don't know, did we approve 4 options or 3?
2
How many?
options. One option was the 4 intersections, and one option was the park.
Or that option for the park? Yeah, I'd like to see if we remove that, if it's a cost savings.
So well, just to be clear, the contract you're being asked for tonight with Elam and Burke is totally separate from a contract you will have come before you on a feasibility study that you don't have yet.
So the feasibility study, we could narrow the scope perhaps. and
When
then
it comes in
that'll
front of
affect
you.
Elam and Burke's yeah, okay,
That's
that makes
correct.
sense. Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
My concern is that every step of the way, we keep finding out, oh, there's going to be another study. Oh, there's going to be more attorney fees. Oh, we're not counting the cost as we move forward. We're incrementally digging a hole, and we're not counting the cost and saying, okay, we want to do this at this cost, this at this cost, this at this cost. And then once we get these intersections done, we're going to pay this much of the intersection. We're not counting the costs. And that's my concern, and that's why I would be voting no on the attorney's contract today.
Okay.
And I'd like to add to that, Mr. Mayor. I guess I succumbed to my emotional reaction when we first did the HER expansion vote. I thought this would be pretty cool to save some open space. But my first priority was fixing the intersections. But had I had all the information before me, I probably would have voted differently than I did. And I want to say that I agree with Councilman White about the fact that we are only given enough information to get us past a milestone without understanding the full risk of what it is we're voting on. And there's too much risk in this to me. The other thing I want to say is that I've gone back and I've watched the meetings from the HERA board, and I frankly don't see the political will of the HERA board to support upgrading the 4 intersections that we approved in the first phase. I could quote from one meeting where one of the individuals said, well, we're just interested in honeysuckle and government, that's it. So I feel like, I'm going to get away from saying feel. My response, based on the information I have before me now, is that I made a mistake in my vote. I don't even think this is worth it, considering the unknown cost it's going to take to do this engagement, to do the research, to hire the third parties that will do the background work, and then come back. And I'm once bitten, twice shy. I'm kind of like at the end of my rope as far as what are the unknown costs. The city has got other things more important to take care of, and that's reflected in our first discussions on the budget. And there, I'm done soapboxing. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go back to what I said originally. Yeah, I'm real conflicted on this. But again, my understanding is if we shut this down now, if we say nope, then it's the taxpayers. If you want these roads improved and you want these intersections done, forget about the park right now. If we shut this down, it shuts down the expansion so that they can participate. If Councilmember Schaefer is correct in his evaluation of HERA's desire to participate in the intersections, I'm going to disagree with it. My understanding from what I see is that they do recognize the need to improve the intersections and that they will participate. Could be wrong, don't know, but my gut's saying that they will. But again, this voice in my head is saying table this until we get some clarification on the costs of this feasibility study, because if we shut it down now, we're at point zero. And from everything I hear, even though we have by far the lowest tax levy rate and all that other stuff, if we have to go to people and say, hey folks, guess what? You know that traffic you call and complain about and write your emails about and the like all the time? And the intersections and how you can't drive government way and get around? You know all that stuff that you talk about? Well, guess what? And I've said this before, if you want it, you have to understand you're going to pay for it. And it's going to be expensive. And then top that on what's probably coming down the pipe with the sewer issue. Possible 40 million upgrade that the state will mandate that we do whether the people vote for it or not. Okay, so again, turn it down, whatever. Folks, for the record, get ready in the next couple of years to see your taxes go way up or your services go way down and your roads that you constantly deal with have no improvement.
I see no choice but to move forward with an engagement letter, because that is the doorway to getting her money. And with our legal counsel saying that after a feasibility study is done, if we have the ability to nix one of the options, we can do it then. So that gives us that ability. So I'm in favor of moving forward with an engagement letter. I know there's unknown on the cost. However, what's the alternative? We're, like Ed said, where are we gonna get the money if we don't do this? So, I support this. It would be nice to have some number in there, like not to exceed X. I think that would be a really good, helpful part of this.
I did speak with Megan with Elamberg, and she was comfortable with, not to exceed amount. I mentioned what she thought was a good number, but you certainly can set whatever number you would like.
And I will remind you, when we needed an elevator so we could be ADA compliant for the city hall, HURA paid $250,000 for that, to do the Ramsey Road extension so that we didn't lose millions of dollars in funding. HURA came in and paid, we're gonna pay 1.3 or 1.4 million, whatever. I don't see them saying no to intersections. Now they say, and I know I was at the meeting yesterday where I was the lone voice, it sounded like everybody loves parks, and I said, hey, but the roads are the priority. I think that the mayor has the ability to change members of that board if they don't seem to want to go along with roads.
Or parks.
Well, whatever, but I mean, if the voice of the people is heard and we are listening, and there are people that have other ideas that they want to do that's not in the best interest overall for the city, I think the mayor has the ability to say, well, you know what, we'll find somebody that is interested in roads.
Yes, I'd also like to add that part of this urban renewal expansion and gives the urban renewal district more property in their district. So that also, in my mind, grows bureaucracy, and it could lessen the tax base to the city, and in the future, raise taxes to the citizens. So
But tonight's decision won't do that.
it all hinges, and it's all incrementally moving forward, and that this is just one little step forward to moving that direction. So, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I don't want to say rebuttal because you're a colleague of mine, Councilman Roeder. I just want to quote from the HURA meeting minutes on April 8th of this year. Commissioner Thayer said HURA's priorities should be parks and open spaces, community center, honeysuckle intersection with Government Way, period. Mr. Meyer said the HURA fund should not be used just for public works projects. Mr. Meyer also said HURA shouldn't have to surplus the city anymore for paving, curbing, roundabout projects. I get it, and I understand what the stated mission of HURA is, and unfortunately, we are in a place where we kind of use it as a piggy bank to take care of infrastructure. Infrastructure is so critical to this city, and as I said, I just don't see a will from HURA to support the intersections, which would be my priority as well as Mr. Roeder's. I just don't think that they're going to be there for us.
I heard those comments, I was there, I was kind of the lone voice in saying intersections, that's what my priority is. But there seems to be a real strong will to, I think people like to create parks and be part of that, I understand that. But again, I'm gonna go back to saying, well, maybe we need new people on the urban renewal district if they're not gonna listen to the will of the people.
I would like to make a comment on that. In one of our meetings, we were asked, it was said that this was a workshop that was not recorded. We were not in agreement as to who's in charge of the urban renewal decisions. One person said, oh, the city council's in charge. Another person said, no, urban renewal makes their own decisions. Another person said, the mayor decides with the help of the council. So We need to decide by law, who is directing the ship as far as urban renewal goes.
Well, I'd like to make a comment that I can't think of, being on the Urban Renewal Board for 5 or 6 years now, that the city has come before the Urban Renewal Board and they've said no. I've not heard that. They seem to be a willing participant, and you can't say partner, because by Idaho Supreme Court ruling, they're sole and separate entities, and they're not an alter ego of the city. So, but they have listened to our request and they've fulfilled it.
Could I ask council, please, we have an issue before us to be decided. We're not here to debate the pros and cons of HURA or whether the Hanson property is or is not for sale. We're here tonight to either engage a legal firm to facilitate the expansion of the HURA district or not.
So I'd like to
And I
make,
apologize if that sounds coarse, that's not my intention. I just feel like we're way down a rabbit hole that we don't need to be in right now.
I'd like to make a motion then.
Okay?
Okay, my motion is that we approve the authorization to sign engagement letter with Elam and Burke to facilitate the expansion of the Hayden Urban Renewal Agency revenue allocation area with a not to exceed or a dollar amount, so we have something to look at. And that may mean, maybe this motion, the motion should be, because we don't know that number, is let's postpone this until the next meeting when we have that number, and then reconsider this engagement letter.
Elam and Burke suggested a not to exceed 45,000.
And it's not in here.
It's not in there because it came after the
Okay, so
packet was posted, so I provided to you
can we
verbally.
amend their engagement
Yes.
letter and prove it?
Yes.
Then my motion would be that we approve this engagement letter with not to exceed 45,000. That's it.
Without prior approval, correct?
Pardon?
Without prior approval, not to exceed without prior approval.
Well, he's approving it up to 45,000. He'd have to come back before
Yes.
council for an excess. Yes.
Is the motion satisfactory?
Yes, we'll ask Abby because she's the one that has to sort
Do I
through
need to
that.
restate it?
I have a motion on the floor from Council President Roeder to approve the engagement letter with Elam and Burke with a not to exceed amount of 45,000.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'm not going to second it at this second here because I tell you what. The politics in this community, I'm gonna rant here, okay?
It's,
Okay.
you actually either need to get a second
Yeah,
or
we
a
need a
not
second.
before you have any
Yeah.
further discussion.
Discussion is after a second if one is
Okay,
given.
Okay.
Does anybody want to offer a second? Okay, I'm hearing no second, so the motion dies.
That's correct.
So now we can return to deliberations.
Okay, more deliberation now, please.
Or somebody could give another
I want to
motion.
call the bluff, to be honest with you. You want to shut it down, okay? You want to not approve it? And put it to the people, like I've talked about the whole night, okay? Multiple millions of dollars to fix all these things. Let's not even look at the feasibility, let's shut it down. And then explain to the people where we're going to get the multiple millions of dollars to do this stuff, or we're not. And we're going to watch things just get worse. Traffic's going to get more. You wait till they're done up there in a couple of years. Hayden Canyon. You think Government Way is bad now, okay? You think we need we have intersection problems now coming down Government Way and the like, okay? When we are not able to afford to pay to make improvements, because the people say, no way, man, I'm not paying any more taxes, okay? Then again, don't complain. Don't write emails and make phone calls and pull people in at the store and say, what the heck's going on here? Because I'll tell you the truth. That's the way it's pay as you go. Everybody wants accountability and whatever, it's pay as you go. If you want nice roads that you can travel, okay, you're gonna pay for them. And they are not inexpensive. You want the sewer and stuff like that? you're gonna pay for that. You want the services that Post Falls and Coeur d'Alene in particular, and Rathdrum has, look at their tax levy rate. You're going to pay that levy rate if you want that level of services, okay? So we can continue to deliberate, but I'll be honest with you, I want to call the bluff.
If I can make a suggestion, perhaps council might want to make a motion to table this item until the next city council meeting when emotions aren't as high and maybe you've had some time to reflect on your peers' comments. It's just a suggestion, of course.
If I can make, add to your suggestion, I would like to know from my fellow council members, if we don't do this and we don't look at her for funding the streets, where's the money going to come from? And I'd like to know your answers.
I agree.
Is that a motion to table?
Well, no one's made a motion to table.
I know, I was
I'm
asking
just-
Matt if that was a motion
I'm
to
just simply
table.
suggesting that, again, given the emotions of right now, it might be smarter for us to make decisions with cooler heads. I'm hearing language where we're talking about projects and things. In other words, we're getting so far ahead of this. This decision is simply to expand a district. It's not to build a park. It's not to fix a street. It's simply to either acquire some land into a district or not. That is the decision. And I know it's frustrating because the government moves one step at a time. I acknowledge that Tom and others could be frustrated because they feel like, well, I'm not given the entire map. Sandy's saying, well, this keeps adding to the cost. But the fact is, the decision before council tonight is just that one step. I'm open to having coffee with any of you to learn how the city can better communicate these projects so they're not so, so we don't have so much spin on it. And we can have that if you want. But again, the decision tonight is to either sign an engagement letter or not, or again, as I suggested, perhaps we can defer this to the May 28th meeting. Sandy, you look like you want to say something.
Yeah, I was just wondering, I don't understand where Councilmember DePriest is coming from. He didn't second the motion, and yet,
The only motion that was brought up died. There was no second, so
that's why
we went back, we just went back to deliberations. Ed offered some deliberation, and I gave a suggestion based on just reading the room and you guys that perhaps this would be better tabled for 2 weeks.
I explained why I didn't second it,
I didn't understand, I'm sorry.
okay? I'll reiterate it then. And again, it gets back to the politics, okay, of it. I didn't second it because although I don't want to, because I think it is so important that we do this. And with all due respect, Mr. Mayor, if I'm understanding, if we do not do this tonight, approve this, okay, it dies.
Or we ask again.
Or we ask again at some time, okay? But I want to call the bluff. The people who are not for this, and I agree with Mr. Council President Roeder, I want to hear the alternatives. The only alternative that I see, unless we get lucky and get $1 gazillion in grants, is to go to the taxpayer. They want the improvements and they want that quality of service and stuff like that, okay? And I'm tired of the politics of everything and the baloney, okay? The fact is, okay, if you don't want it, then where are you gonna get the money? And say it. Say it. We're gonna raise your taxes, folks. We're gonna come and ask you for bonds. That's the only way you're gonna get it.
So Sandy, if I can, I think what Ed is trying to say is he didn't second the motion because not seconding the motion will have consequences. Does that make better sense?
That's a PC way to say it, but yes, you're right.
Well, it's just more succinct.
Yeah,
I'd like to make a motion that we table this until the 28th.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, may we get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember White,
Yes,
Councilmember Schaefer,
You say yes.
I did the table, yes.
I'm in agreement.
is that a yes?
Yes.
Councilmember DePreez?
Yes.
And Council President Roder?
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes. We will punt this one. Move on to item 6, reports. Lisa, do you have anything for city administrator report or calendar review?
Yeah, I just wanted to give council a brief update of what the last 2 weeks have looked like. A big part of the last 2 weeks has been preparing for our March 31st budget workshop, so happy to answer any questions you might have.
March 31st.
Sorry.
I corrected her.
It's off, isn't it?
I gotta
Apparently
check
I'm
my-
backwards.
gotta check my
We're
calendar.
going back in time.
This is my second part of the day. I'm on hour number 12
You lost
almost.
count.
So May 31st.
May 31st.
I apologize for that. We did just have the Kite Festival. I heard it was near record numbers of folks who were in attendance. That was a fantastic event, I was told. Hopefully, if council members made it, they saw some of the events that I call the heart of our community happening. I visited Crawford Park today. That I was told will likely be completed by the end of the month. And some staff is reluctant to say that we might be able to use it by this fall, but we're excited to see what this fall will present as it comes to our fall sports. I have some photos if council's interested in seeing about the Stoddard Barn renovation or work that was done out there. I can show it to you. I'll leave it to you guys to decide if you want me to do that. And then Carissa, who's in the audience tonight, is with LTAC. She, if you recall, was here when we were discussing the Ramsey Road Corridor project. She happened to be in the area and decided to come be here. And she and I are working on the state and local agreement, which I'm hopeful and fingers crossed we'll have at our next meeting. And that would be for those funds to be essentially our amount to go to the state for them to bid that project this fall. So with that, if council is interested, I can show you some of the pictures, or if there's questions of the state and local agreement that we're working on, I'm happy to answer.
Okay. Moving on to 6B, are there any roundtable discussion items for reports, non-action items?
Mr. Mayor, I'll report on KMPO.
Okay.
It's not very emotional, it might put the audience to sleep, but the most important issue that came out of our meeting last week, which was approved by the board, is basically a call to put tighter reins on what they call large urban projects. And so we're a beneficiary of a large urban project for the Ramsey Road extension. And the Glenn Miles was kind enough not to single us out as the poster child on that, but basically, it's kind of a use it or lose it structure they're going with now, because what they do is they take a certain amount of money given by the state to this pool, and then based upon needs that are provided by different communities like Hayden, they prioritize and they say, okay, you know, the city gets it first, and then you, Hayden, you'll get it next. And then you have to use that money in a certain time. If you don't, then it goes back into the pool for somebody else. So,
And I think we saw that as a result of the sort of termination of this project was a result of that particular.
I think it's a good thing. It'll force accountability so that we'll be more proactive with the use of the funds.
Thank you, Tom. Is there anything on this side? Matt?
Yeah, I'd like to. I've got grandsons that are playing Little League. And one goes to Coeur d'Alene by Canfield, that's sports, Canfield Sports Complex, and the other one's going to Crawford Park. And I just want to say, those fields out of Crawford Park are incredible. The asset that we have is just, it's enormous for the size of our city. I mean, we have soccer fields, and there's a dog park, and they've got those fields manicured. So this is a kudos to the Parks Department and the maintenance that they're doing. They're doing an incredible job. And I have to tell you a little story about my one grandson. He got his first hit in Little League. Now, why this is important is his dad was a pro baseball player. So you know how important the first hit is? But here's what happened. He never swung.
You got it.
So how did that happen? He's holding the bat like this, and the ball goes behind his head. It hits the bat, and he's looking around, and everybody's saying, run, Ebbett, run, and he doesn't know what to do. So that was his very first hit. But again, the facilities we have for our community is incredible. And then, you know, going to the maintenance costs, because Lisa and I have talked about with inflation and that, you know, we have to maintain our fields, fertilize water, electricity, all that other stuff. And it's a lot of money to maintain these parks. And these guys are doing a great job on the budget that we give them. And I just want to give kudos to them. They do fantastic work.
They'll appreciate hearing that, yep.
Anything else?
Yeah, I'd like to mention Memorial Day is coming up May 27th. So Susie, you want to tell us about Memorial Day?
Well, the program is pretty much complete, and Dr. Phil Rosenkrantz will be giving a Memorial Day address, and it's about his journey finding out what happened to his missing in action 73-year-old. There was 73 years that it took to figure out what happened to him in World War II. So should be very interesting. The 9:30 is at Honeysuckle, and then 11 o'clock will be the main one down, the remembrance ceremony here at City Hall.
And Phil Rosenkrantz is my brother, so he'll be talking about my Uncle Dave. Thank you.
Are there any other items from council? I'm just going to close real quick. I went to the Kite Festival. I want to thank Susie publicly and thank your staff, please. I will share with you that I have my least favorite things I do as mayor, and that attending that Kite Festival is probably my favorite thing so far. It provides the balance, seeing our community working together, playing together, talking together is a completely different environment than the public might see and hear as we debate these difficult issues. And I would encourage our citizens to attend every one of those they can and remind themselves what a special place our city is. And that's all I got.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
They both ends didn't say it, but Arbor Day is Thursday, so we have 580 students, plus or minus, last count.
That's 500.
In the park at like 17 to 20 learning centers around the park. And it's a real asset for our Two City USA status,
Thank you, Don.
as well as educational for all of the schools in the area.
Thank you.
I see a lot of
capturing the middle.
students in the room. How many of you are seniors in high school?
Yay.
Congratulations on making it through.
They had to get through this first.
Are you, are you all in a government class? Okay, is it a requirement to attend the meeting?
Does everybody need a squiggle on a
Way
piece
to
of paper?
go, guys, but congratulations.
So, City Council, I will appreciate your help tonight,
Yeah.
so I'm not signing every single one of these. If you just sign your name and write City Council, that would be swell.
Sure.
Do we need a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
So moved.
Okay, wait a second.
Second.
All right, we're adjourned. That was kind of.